Hello, everyone. This week we're turning up the heat, literally and figuratively, because of a few of our co-hosts just got back from nationals in Las Vegas, where the dice were rolling for first or second turn, of course. The decks were cracked, and the competition was scorching. Today on Tunic Counter Gamers, we're talking decks, dice, and desert heat. Deep dive into the nationals experience. My name is Will.
I'm Evan.
Trevor.
All right, now before we begin our nationals coverage, what did we learn since last week?
Well, I learned that I went to nationals and participated in it, and now I'm exhausted and a bit sick.
Yeah, pretty much same for me. I'm pretty tired. It was a lot. I guess maybe pace yourself a bit, which it's kind of hard to do, but you know,
Yeah,
still a good
I
time.
feel like the entire show will be talking about what we learned in nationals, so we'll just leave the specifics for when they come up.
That's fair. I learned from listening to these two that you should always take airborne with you and preload the airborne. So,
What?
airborne, it's the vitamin C drops you put into water and drink it,
Oh,
and it has zinc so it could
okay.
prevent sickness. Anyways, when
See,
I
Trevor
co
thought you said something else.
Did you think he said something else too, bro?
I
You're like,
did, but I
what
wasn't
did you
gonna
okay.
admit
what did
it.
you think I said?
Let's say things that are, we were in Vegas.
Uh-huh.
We
Thought the
we
B
had
was a
certain
P, bro.
mindsets.
Hmm. See, this is what I get for joking around before the podcast and priming your brains for like perversion, I guess. But anyways, I also learned that Gravy Bones is really prolific right now. So much so, I think in our Tuesday Armory we had like 5 Gravy Bones, and that's way too much. So I'm
Damn.
actually going to stable Gravy Bones, and I'm gonna bring out Prism, or I might rework one of my other decks, like the new Puffin or Marlin seems interesting. So I'll see what I do tomorrow. I figured ally adjacent hero, illusionist, why not? So that's probably why I learned the last week. I like a little variety in my armories, and I don't want to, like, one guy fought 3 rounds, all gravy bones.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, before we begin, what's the one word you'd use to sum up your Nats experience?
Exhausting.
Mm,
Now, Trevor,
Legit.
you're on the back foot. You got to think of another one word while Evan explains his
yeah.
exhausting.
I mean, legitimately, for those of you who have never been to like a major competition for Flesh and Blood, like a calling, like nationals, anything like that, especially one that's sort of out of state, even out of country, uh, just expect to be exhausted. Like when I say exhausting, I mean like in a fun way. I had so much fun at nationals, but my god, like the moment the adrenaline ran out, my body, I said, what is happening to me? I just sort of collapsed. Yeah, it's not for
Yeah.
the faint of heart, but it is such a fun time. Just expect yourself to be a bit under the weather as well. So, like, once it's all said and done, but
Yeah, it's fair. Trevor, what's your one word to sum up your Nats experience?
I'm gonna go with energy. Just like a lot of energy in the room, man. And like every event you're doing, people are usually pretty hype, but I mean, I don't know, the vibe can change like so quickly though, because like I was spoiler, I guess I was doing the calling for sealed and I was like 2-0 for a bit and
Mm,
like everyone's like try harding there. And then when you're in the I was also, I guess, extra spoilers. I was in the 2-2 bracket where if you lose, you're out.
mm,
Um, then the vibe is like everyone there, they're trying to win, like, because
mm.
otherwise, like, they're out and then you're staying in. So a lot of energy going on in the
look at
room.
Trevor trying to one up me. I choose the word exhausting. He chooses the word energy.
I would have picked exhausting, honestly, if you hadn't taken it first. It's very, very
That's
tiring, man.
fair.
I slept like 12 hours when I got home.
Well, it doesn't help that you guys were definitely in a different time zone, and by the time you get there,
hmm
you have to adjust to that, and then by the time you get back, you have to readjust to that. And it's not like you're taking a few days off. I mean, you guys might have if you guys got sick. But it's not like you're taking a few
hmm
days off before you get back to work. It's usually get in on Sunday, you go to work on Monday, right? Isn't that what you did, Evan?
No, the Trevor and I, we actually took a couple extra days. to explore Vegas because we're in the area, we're in Vegas.
Oh,
Might as
nice.
well do some Vegas things. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. We unfortunately both got sick.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
got the con cold, I guess some would call it, as
Concord,
well
yeah.
as just being exhausted from doing the event and also doing like a bunch of tourist things. So big weekend
Yeah.
for us. And even though we took off a couple extra days, since we were, being tourists, having fun, very little time for resting up until when we got back, basically.
Okay. And so after the tournament, after the weekend, you guys decided to stay at Vegas. When you got back to your hotel room at night, was there any flesh and blood talk, or was it just pure talking about the day, unraveling? Like, did you play extra games while you're there to settle down, or were you like, I want to take a total break and be totally on vacation, be in the moment in Las Vegas?
We did some fun stuff with the boys. We had a big group go out. So shout out to all the boys. Our buddy Noah, our buddy Paul, Justin, Thomas, Jeremy, all the locals in the Georgia area. Can't forget Chris. He was on Riptide, my boy.
Day 2, only one.
Day 2. He was the one of
Really? Wow.
Riptide.
Yeah.
We were all very very proud of him for that. But yeah,
That's great.
so we all got to hang out a bit after the event, have fun, had some good food. We
Yeah.
did also do a bit of practice here and there. I know, for instance, Justin and Noah did some practice, I think, after day 2 of nationals for helping out Andrew Cook, because Cook, the absolute goat of Georgia,
Yeah.
he recently top eighted a massive pro tour, and he went from that to then top 80 nationals.
Yeah, he's crushing it, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what he's been putting in his water. I mean, but yeah, he's actually a new member of the card guys too.
Yeah, no, so that was a great fun for the card guys as well. I
Yeah,
think they are very ecstatic to have had him join because he is only getting stronger. So,
yeah.
but yeah, so there was a bit of testing going on just for his top 8 going into, I guess, Sunday as well.
Hmm.
So I mainly was just sleeping, but around me, people were accomplishing things and practicing.
Hmm.
And honestly, to be the best, a lot of this stuff is kind of a must.
That's true. You can't let it up on the gas pedal if you're making it to the finals, and that's got to be high pressure. And he's just come off like you said, the pro tour right into nationals to do good at nationals. I mean, what a good representation for Georgia, anyways. Like we had a couple guys make day 2. Like I said,
Yeah.
it's just our locals are just so sweaty. So, which is great. I find myself getting stronger because of it. But so, what's something unexpected that you guys learned at nationals? Like anything new, or is it
Um,
same old business as normal, just in a different city, different state?
I mean, Vegas is quite a different place, but overall, like the actual tournament venue is kind of your sort of standard area where like a card game tournament would be held.
Hmm.
Just sort of a big room with a lot of tables.
Yeah.
But man, those
Mm.
tables were really crappy. So
Oh no,
Yeah.
say more. What was wrong with the tables? Like just you got
just
some
the
unexpected
tablecloth
stickiness,
was,
and oh okay.
oh no, not Will.
Hey, you don't know about the donkey shows. I'm just saying, guys.
Okay. Yeah, the
Anyways,
tables were not great.
okay.
Uh,
Yeah, just the tablecloths were just like clumping together,
Uh,
so it was very
mhm.
tough to get your cards to, be straight just because everything was so, like, the table itself was not, and that was pretty terrible. But hopefully these are things that your average competitor at your average calling or nationals will not have to deal with.
so table's not so good. That was unexpected because they usually, I know SCG Con ran this event. And they usually have good tables, good space. It's crowded like any con goes, but I know we'll talk more about that later. But Trevor, how about you? Anything unexpected at nationals when you first stepped in? Anything, good, bad?
Something I thought was just kind of interesting is a few people just had never played High Seas Limited before. So a lot of them were kind of reading this stuff like for the first time in the events
Oh,
I was doing. They were just kind of, I was doing like the calling, like the world qualifier events. So it was like a little bit, not nationals level, but like kind of high up there. But yeah, they were like reading these cards and like Treasure Island and stuff. And I was like, all
oh
right,
my gosh!
like here we go.
Like
But
first time they just that's their first time seeing these
yeah,
cards was at the event.
I
That's
mean,
crazy.
yeah, and I was talking to them. I mean, they're like, they've been playing the game for a while, and they just
Mm,
wanted to come out, have fun, and it's, a big event near them. So like, why wouldn't you?
mm,
Um, but yeah, just thought
yeah,
that was like
Yeah, I
kind of
guess that's
interesting.
something to note, I guess, since I know a lot of newer players sort of follow along with this with our talks, but like this is US national, so you might think like, oh,
Hmm.
you shouldn't go to this event unless like you're a very, very good player, you've qualified for nationals. But there are side events. There was a
mm,
calling, there was a
Yeah.
battle hardened. So there was plenty of like more casual things to do.
mhm,
So if you're interested in these sort of events, yeah, just go to one of them. Like even if
Yeah.
you don't think like, hey, I'm not the best Flesh and Blood player, if you think to yourself like, hey, I don't want to be like the most competitive, like you'll find something fun to do at
mhm.
one of these
Mhm.
sort of events. So
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I
I
just want to
was
say I wasn't trying to do it like in a negative light. Like it was fine,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
like if they want to learn it, but it just surprised me because I like practiced a lot of sealed and like coming in and I'm like, all right, like let's do this, this, and this, and then they were like, what's that card do?
Yeah.
yeah, we
You
definitely
know?
for like nationals there was a lot of prep. So
Mhm.
like for a bunch of the folks going to nationals, yeah, these people are prepared, but
Yeah.
like you don't have to be prepared to
Yeah,
have fun at some of these events. So
no,
Yeah.
100%.
And I didn't take it as a negative, Trevor. I was just surprised that people would
Hmm.
get to nationals with the travel, the commute, and they didn't even flip open the phone and read the spoilers, or check out our video. So, anyways, that's interesting though. So, did nationals change the way you view the current meta?
Yeah,
mm, I
I mean,
know
I was
like a
gonna,
lot of people weren't sure if Gravy was going to be good,
yeah.
like,
Hmm.
and he got second place.
I mean, big boats,
So
right? I haven't even looked at that list. I should go check it out though.
like I think like the big thing is like, hey, Gravy is actually like a force in the meta.
Mm,
Like
Hmm.
that's sort of for sure happening. So
Yeah, like what I had heard was Gravy maybe wasn't the best. Nobody seemed super impressed by it, but I mean, honestly, now that like people are a little bit more locked in on the nationals list, it's got its place for sure.
yeah. I mean, you're running a deck of 30 blue block threes mostly, right? I mean, that's like Evan's,
Yeah,
heaven right there.
there's a
yeah,
lot of no balls
Gravy.
in that deck though.
No, yeah.
Yeah,
Now, granted, blue block threes. That's what you need for like limited,
yeah.
right? And we'll talk about limited in a bit, but Gravy and I sure got along just swimmingly in limited.
So, any moments in the whole weekend that shifted your perspective as a player or a content creator? I mean, I know we're really like established now, guys, but like, is
Mhm.
there anything that's happened where you like think of, oh, maybe I want to do this going into the future, or I'm looking at the card game differently since we started this podcast? Like anything that happened, like as from that perspective, or even something you noticed that you could probably say, oh, I should mention this for the newer players that aren't going to, the nationals. Like what you were saying earlier, Evan, like calling it out. You don't have to be going to nationals to play all the side events. So. Like, was there any other moments that shifted your perspective?
There were some pretty like crazy things. Like I think the entire nationals meta was kind of a shock. I think, for instance, like Syndra was the second most represented deck. I
Oh,
did
that is
not
interesting.
anticipate that to be the case.
Mm.
Unfortunately, Syndra didn't do too hot at the competition,
Is that a pun?
though. I mean, I do
Yeah.
think like Syndra's pretty well positioned. I think
Hmm.
Syndra's actually one of the heroes I'm looking into as well.
Mm.
This is mainly off the new dagger. Syndra got a Spell Void dagger, which I guess Spell Void blocking arcane damage is pretty powerful.
Hmm.
So it kind of puts her in a good position against something like Florian, for instance,
Mm.
which is still like far and about like shown itself to be the best deck in the meta, even to this day. So any deck that can like do well against Florian, like you should be paying attention.
Yeah.
Case in point, of course, Majin Bay's Verdant's list, of course.
Yeah.
Not to mention, of course, shout out to Noah, the number 3
True.
Verdants in America.
Finished 23rd, right?
He finished
Wow.
23rd.
Yeah. Fucking huge.
Yeah,
He,
that's
he
great.
literally went from 0-2 into
Yeah.
his current placing. I was very worried for him at the beginning of Nationals, and there was nothing to worry about because he definitely submarined through the entire event.
Yeah, but Noah Z's always been good. He's always been on the cusp, and then Jem got him last time he was doing really good, and he bubbled out when he was like 5-2 and lost the last game to get into the tops, or like the day two. I can't remember exactly, but he was doing really good, and then he kind of crapped down. That was at Florida.
Because he was on
Yeah.
he was
That's
on
cool.
stream actually because he
Yeah,
was 5-0.
paid too much attention to the feet of Verdance, I guess. But yeah, we're going to have Noah on this podcast because he does a lot of good tournament prep. I know we talked about that. I showed him last time on episode 12, like just flashing across, like, hey, we want to get him on here because he does his diligence and he's very methodical in his practice and he does a lot of good things with you guys as far as getting set up for success, which is so important, right? But
Yeah.
and Trevor, anything that called out especially for you as far as changing your or shifting your perspective as a player or content creator?
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. I wasn't really thinking about like the content side, I guess. I was
Yeah,
just
okay.
kind of playing my games, like just talking to people, having fun, doing what I usually do.
Well, it's the best
Um,
way to represent us, right?
yeah.
So that's fair. All right. So for those that haven't seen and I'm or haven't even been, right? How can you describe how nationals is structured? Like you kind of highlighted a little earlier, Evan, but like so you walk into this building, you buy your package, right? Do you buy your package in advance? How much in advance do you buy everything, get the tickets for, then show up?
So I guess Nationals is a bit different from your average event. So I'll sort of explain Nationals and then we'll sort of go from there and sort of talk about how
Mm,
it differs from like your average just normal calling. So Nationals, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, right? Like every country has like a Nationals tournament to determine who is the best player in the nation.
mm.
U.S. Nationals was, of course, last weekend as of the moment we're filming. And to join the Nationals event, you have to qualify. There's one of two ways to do so. And this is currently for 2025. I know they're planning some changes to sort of how you qualify as well as like the ELO structure. So it might change next year. But right now, the two ways to qualify are to top four a Road to Nationals event, and those are local events. We had one uh, recently. It was draft, and that's how I qualified for it. So I got top four in that event.
But you would have
Um,
qualified anyways just based off your current scoring, wasn't it?
yeah, the other way to qualify is the top 100 players in your nation that have not qualified from the Road to Nationals, right? So, for instance, I think people up to rank like 200 or so in America managed to qualify via their ELO ranking,
Hmm.
um, just to sort of fill out the numbers there. So, technically, I could have qualified like that, but I did. I instead qualified by top fouring an RTN.
Hmm.
So, those are the two methods to qualify. And for that, like you have to sign up for nationals if you want to attend. But if you qualify for it, you don't have to pay anything. Like it's just an event that you can attend basically for free. You've already qualified for it, right?
Mm.
So there's no sort of paying money for it.
Just the
Other
trip
events
out there,
though,
and you don't need a con ticket, you don't need the event ticket. You just show up because you're
yeah,
qualified. Okay, and that's for
for,
nationals.
yes.
Okay.
For all these like sort of events for people who aren't familiar with like bigger flesh and blood events, like going into the event hall is always going to be free. Like you can just do that. If you want to join events though, you will have to pay. So for instance, the calling. So Nationals had a calling attached to it, and a lot of the big tournaments that happen around the globe, they're going to be callings. These you will have to pay for. right? So these are things that you can pay at the event. Though, if you want to guarantee a ticket, I would recommend going online to whatever retailer is doing the calling in question and buying a ticket that way.
And so, Evan, you went to the Nationals. Trevor, you didn't get your Nationals invite, correct?
No, yeah, no. I was lazy during the RTN season, so I only
Mhm.
did the one event. But that was also the draft where Evan had a top forward, and I top aided, and I didn't
Oh.
make it. This was one win short.
But you decided to go anyways, and it was with intent, not playing Nationals, but to play the
Yeah.
calling, the battle hardened, and all the other side events.
hmm
All right.
Yeah, so that was my game plan there. So that's like another side, which I think it's totally valid to do that. This one specifically was a little weird because every sealed event pretty much sold out event like immediately because we have all these distribution issues. So you
Mm.
pretty much weren't able to if you didn't sign up like the day prior, which kind of threw a wrench in my plan because I only brought a Dio who like she's fun, but I didn't think she was like super great into the current meta. So I was just planning on doing like sealed and draft, but really could only do a few events. Um, but yeah, I mean, my plan was to do the world qualifier on the first day. So that was the first day nationals was going on.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone who qualified for nationals is doing nationals, and the world qualifier event was if you top 4 or something, you get or maybe it was top 2. You get an invite into worlds, but it was like sealed into draft, so it was good practice for the calling, which was on the
Mm-hmm.
next day, which was sealed into day 2 draft. So that was my kind of game plan, which was it was still fun. It was a lot of people from out of the country were there because they're not allowed to compete in the U.S. nationals. So there's a lot of like Canadian players there. Like Yuki was in there, and she was in top 8 because she's very good at the game.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, still a good time.
Okay. So you're
Yeah.
saying you should probably get the schedule list, and if you have intent of playing the side events that are draft and sealed,
Mhm.
especially upon release of a new set, sign up a day ahead of time, right?
I don't know if that's like the case like in general. This one was really just because of supply issues. I
Yep.
don't think they would
Yeah, in
usually
general,
go
like
out.
side
Yeah.
events, you should just be able to sign up like
hmm
at the
Mm.
time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they usually don't have like pre-sign up for like smaller side events.
hmm
But
Mm.
if you want like for instance, if you're going to an event to do the calling, I would recommend signing up for that like before,
Yeah. Yeah. Big events
right?
like that for sure, or like battle hardened or stuff because I've
Yeah.
seen those sell out before. But side events, you're usually fine.
And that sort of goes into sort of an interesting thing for some newer players, which is like if you're worried about like let's say I go to a calling and sort of I flunk out, like don't be worried about that. There's always going to be something else to do.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like for instance, there might be a battle hardened. There are going to be some side events you can attend. So plenty of fun stuff, even if the main event you wanted to do didn't go so well.
Yeah.
Case in point, somebody here out of the three of us went to nationals. I'm not going to name names, but they didn't do so well,
Mhm.
and they lost their winning in to make day 2.
I'm sorry to
Um,
hear that.
yeah, I'm sorry to hear that, Trevor, that you
Yeah,
didn't day
it's
2.
okay. It happens.
Um,
You just pick yourself up, man.
But luckily, so yeah, I didn't manage to day 2 nationals, unfortunately.
yeah,
But on the bright side, I was able to sign up for the calling right after I flunked out, and I did quite well at the calling. So,
very cool.
uh,
I, I guess I'll have to talk to you about that because one of the questions I have coming up, and we can kind of handle that now if you want. Mental state, like such an important thing when people go tilt. Like we talked about Vegas, and my first time there was winning comps for my poker playing when I used to do that more heavily. But there's the tilting is when you get bad beat a hand that you kind of had a kind of a sure thing, and it kind of affects your gameplay for the rest of the matches. And you're trying to get off like back in the right mind frame, but sometimes you just you're tilting, right? And it's kind of like it's kind of a hard thing to get shake out of. So when you're not doing so well in the nationals, did you ever have that effect where like you misplayed and you kind of like tanking your mood, or were you like, I got all these other side events, I'm not too worried about this one, even though it would have been great to make it further? Like what happened with that, Evan?
yeah.
What's your mental state?
I definitely was a bit tilted, I'll say. I think I started off quite strong. I started off 3-0, but then I faced 2 mirror matches. I was playing Azalea,
Hmm.
and 2 games in a row, I played the mirror, where in essence, I lost the die roll. And because I lost the die roll, I lost the entire game on the spot. Yeah.
So in get to the
In
mirror, what do you want to do? You want to go first or second? Yeah, you
you,
want to go
you
first, right?
always want to go first,
Yeah.
and you want to hope that you have the card knock the death whistle in your
Hmm.
hand. And in both games, I lost the die roll in the mirror, and every player had a knock the death whistle in their opening hand. So I looked at my hand, I said, "Oh, I have a knock." So I win the game unless they have a knock. And then they
Uh,
always had the knock. And since
oh,
they were going first, they beat me. Um
so
yeah, the Azalea mirror is famously absolutely terrible. Yeah. So knock the death whistle grabs a dominated red in the ledger, and red in the ledger is very good against other rangers. It basically stops their entire turn, like straight up.
ugh.
So getting a turn 0 where you get to time walk your opponent is insane.
And you're coming in with some damage, and you're bleeding damage as well.
Yeah.
That's terrible, man.
So yeah, it definitely sucked, and it was a bit frustrating to say like, "Hey, I just lost this game to a literal die roll." Like it wasn't,
Mm,
because I've definitely like felt, "Oh, I lost this game because of a die roll," but I've never had it so literally occur, right?
mm,
Where you look at your hand, you look at your opponent's hand, and you say, "Oh, okay, so whoever won the die roll wins this game." Um, but the thing is, like, the way to get out, I got out of that sort of mental state of like, oh, I lost this game because of the die roll, is just like looking back at the game. Like, what could have I done differently in order to win the game? And there was no misplay on my part, right?
mm.
Like, I lost the die roll, so I lost, but like, so it kind of helps to sort of like give yourself the feedback, right?
Yeah.
Just if you did misplay, say, okay, what did I do wrong? To sort of look at it constructively.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, like, we do play a card game, so sometimes you will get to the state of like, hey, I didn't do anything wrong, and I
Hmm.
just lost because of luck in this case, or maybe your opponent drew better. Any number of things can happen, but just thinking to yourself like constructively, like, here's what I did wrong, here's how I could have done it better. Or in cases where like you didn't do anything wrong,
Hmm.
like everything you did, everything you could, like, in ways even that is like some solace, right? Like no, I played it well,
Yeah.
like there's nothing I could have done differently.
Which, Evan, I gotta say, it's good advice for any player who's still pursuing this game. It's a game of variance. You can do everything right and still lose, and that's just the way it works sometimes. But you can always be proud if you get to the end of the game. You're like, well, I played to the best of my ability, and sometimes they just get their power cards first. The knock the death whistle to red on the ledger, rolling the dice. So all these things line up, and sometimes, I always say the sun shines on a monkey's ass every now and then, right? And that's what happens. So, but that expression is not popular. Anyways, it doesn't matter.
Very
Um,
eloquent way of putting it, Will. Thank you for that.
well, like subconsciously, I've been knocked the death whistle read in the ledger so many times. Anytime I see two azaleas face each other, I say you guys deserve each other. Except I really want you to do good, right? But having that mental replay where you just go back and say, okay, well, I lost on the dice roll. Nothing else I could have done here. I can see how that would be very rewarding to kind of go forward with it. Like, okay, well, sometimes that just happens. So,
Yeah.
and Trevor, I know your case was a little
Yeah.
different, but you did play some side events. You did play the Battle Hardened. How about you? How do you like? Do you ever lose your focus? Do you ever go on tilt?
Yeah, so I did the calling, not the battle harden,
Okay, sorry.
and I kind of crashed out a little bit in the calling. I think my pool was like incredibly mediocre. Like there was
Uh,
really nothing in there that I thought like made me want to be in any deck in particular, and I ended up like kind of just by default going into Cannon Marlin. just because it was like the least bad one.
Yeah,
And
because you can still rely on the cannons to at least pump some
mhm.
arrows to send them in, right?
Yeah. The entire game plan actually was I had like 2 red charter courses, and I was just trying to like dominate Harpoon to like scumbag people, which is how I got my 2 wins, was like sending like a overpower for like 9 or whatever.
I love this card, by the way. I'm just saying it's
Yeah. And then so I won my first 2 games actually, so I was like kind of like, okay, we can make this work. And then I just started playing people who had like strictly better decks than me. Like
yeah.
I wasn't running a full equipment suite because I couldn't, and then my one power card was return fire, but like it was always super awkward because I didn't have to patch the hole. And then actually, like one Puffin player I played against, they went Cog in the Machine into Cogworks Dovetail, which is like crazy. And then like next turn they played Cogworks Workshop, and they got to keep all of their cogs around for 2 turns,
Oh no.
which was like brutal. Yeah, so I was like, yeah. And then it's pretty tight margins, right? If you go like X3, you're pretty much out of day
Mm.
2 at that point because I was losing pretty early on. So at that point in my games, like when I was actually sitting down, I was trying like my best to like get my outs, like play as clean as I possibly can, like with what I have, because there is
Mm.
a chance that I can win. And then as long as I'm winning, I can keep, you just kind of take it like one game at a time,
Mm.
right? Like you can't think of it as like, oh, I have to win every game from here on out or whatever. You just have to like win this game and then you deal with the next one.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, after I started off 2-0 and then I lost my next 3 games in a row. So then I just dropped after that. But
Mm.
I
There,
mean, that it's kind of just how it goes, but doesn't feel great. But there's not a whole lot you can really do. Like I thought about my games, like what Evan was saying was like is very good. You should think about your games, think about
mm.
like where you had, I don't know, influence on it or whatever, and like where you could have made like a critical decision point. But I don't think I really had that. It was just like my deck was like a lower quality, and I didn't think I was really gonna get there.
Yeah. Sometimes the Sill decks you can win with average cards, but if it's mediocre and doesn't really fit kind of the place tower or the
Hmm.
theme, even with the 3 heroes, what's worse is you're averaging all 3 heroes, right?
Yeah, that
Because you don't
was.
have, yeah, and the bomb you have is literally a defensive card, like a
Mhm.
block card. It's not a pretty place to be in compared to some of the other powerhouse cards like the, cog play that the Puffin player did. So,
Yeah, and like honestly, at that point, like I was just like laughing with my opponent because like I was like, "Damn, you have like the actual nuts! Like that's insane." Like it wasn't like a bad vibe or anything. I was just kind of bummed because I wanted to day 2 the calling, but just
yeah.
wasn't in the books.
On a side note, you did make it into a day 2 calling because you did go X and 3, and a lot of
Yeah,
people either dropped and shifted off to other side events and tournaments, but you stuck around because you were like, why not? You had a strong showing, and you actually made day 2 because you stuck around an X and 3 record.
yeah. That one was a little bit different because my last I was X2 for like until the last game, and the way
Mm,
it kind of works is like X2s usually make it into day 2, and then like some X3s kind of like squeak in,
mm,
and it depends when that loss was. So like my losses were pretty late, so like I had a pretty good odds of making it around. Like I was hanging around the top tables,
mm,
so I knew like I was in a pretty good spot. But like that one, I was kind of like I was scooting down towards like the end of the bottom tables, and
mm.
then I was losing, so there's not a whole lot you
Gotcha.
can
So
stick
you
out
kind of,
it. Like yeah. There's no problem if like you just want to play and you want to
mm,
have like fun, but there's no like prize support or like reason. Like you could just do a sealed event, like a side event.
yeah.
If you want to like maybe get something out of it, is usually just kind of like the smarter play.
So I guess for both of you, playing CC, did you fight any rogue decks or off-meta picks that kind of surprised you?
I
Like
played
you
against the Katsu.
you
How'd
played
that go?
against Katsu? Yeah, I'm curious, man, because
I,
Katsu has not been relevant in such a long time, even with his new cards.
I did beat the Katsu, so
Nice.
that was cool. But then again, Azalea against Katsu is a bit of a you read in the ledger them and they say they look at their armor suite and they say, "Wow, I have like 4 block in total." So yeah, ninjas do not like Azaleas, and I think Katsu has like an infamously bad armor suite just in
Mm,
general
Yeah.
in terms of like block value.
yeah. Trevor, how about you? Any off-meta decks or rogue decks that you fought against, and you're like, oh, that's pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm. I only did sealed.
Okay.
My events were the sealed, the calling, and I did a team sealed
All right.
with Noah and Paul.
And then you kind of mentioned it earlier with the puff and play. But what was the most memorable interaction or deck tech you came across? And Trevor, you already said about the puffin, but was there another one you wanted to mention? And Evan, do you have one that comes to mind?
It wasn't like surprising when it happened because I actually practiced a lot of like draft and sealed prior to going here, so I knew a lot of these interactions. But somebody patched the hole or return fire from their arsenal, and that's really strong. It's really, really good.
I know you mentioned the patch to hole return fire earlier.
Yeah, that was actually one of my calling losses. That's when I was like, man, he's like me but better because I had return fire in my hand and he had it in his arsenal, so he got to like do that, and then he played the bomb shot, whatever. So he sent like a 0 for 8 next turn. It's pretty good.
Oh man, you know what? I don't think I ever would have came across this interaction during our sealed play. But also, I do like how our background and Patch the Hole kind of pairs up really well together. Like he's staring into the camera. Just on the off topic, but Evan,
do love it.
How about you?
Yeah.
To be honest, I'm with Trevor. I didn't play too much. I played 5 rounds of constructed for nationals, and I think most things I saw were pretty standard. I did see the Katsu. I faced the Vinset, which was kind of funny. I think, overall, I didn't face too many sort of rogue decks, though I do know they exist. I think famously there was, of course, Chris was playing the one of day 2 Riptide. So we were all very proud of him there.
Shout out to you, Chris.
Shout out Chris. And then there was, of course, a lot of murmurings about the hero in the deck that had the highest conversion rate out of, or not conversion rate, but highest win rate out of any hero in the game. And that was Max the Hype Nitro, who managed to get, I think, like a 70% win rate or something among CC games. So that was pretty interesting. I remember hearing that, I think somebody on our team, a Georgia local, faced the Max when they were like 4-0. And I had the double take. I said, "What? You're facing a 4-0 Max?" So yeah, Max had a pretty good showing, which congratulations to that one of Max player.
That's great, man. That's a pretty off meta deck too. Yeah, I was not expecting Max to be doing good at the national scene, but interesting. So, kind of, I guess I'll mention it here. How do you think the results of the nationals? Like we kind of followed the top tables, and then we already mentioned that the top 2 was Verdance and Gravy Bones. How do you think that this will shape the Road to Nationals and Worlds events leading up to these events? Or do you think it's just going to be like another hiccup before things settle out and then the meta will be redefined when the Guardian Mastery Pack comes out and everything else?
I mean, it's really tough to say. We literally have, I think, both New and Azalea, and even Dash IE. So 3 heroes that are like this close to just being gone. Like Azalea is one of the top decks right now. She was a hero I was playing actually because I believed in her quite a lot, and she did actually do pretty good. She made the top 8, and she is a hero I do not expect to live for the entirety of the national season, right?
When she goes,
yeah, so does Death Dealer. Yeah, so all of a sudden, like Riptide and Marlin, like their best weapon also goes. So just Rangers in general without Azalea and Death Dealer, I am unsure where we are going to be, and it frightens and confuses me.
Oh man, that's like when KO actually LLs. If he does it before Rhinar, like they lose the claw, which is off topic, I know, but it's the heroes taking their weapons with them is kind of scary, more scary than sometimes the actual hero leaving.
I mean, that just means you'll have to roll scabs more.
Yes. Don't worry, Brute set next time. That's the next set coming out after Guardian. We all know it.
Shout
I
out.
agree. Yeah.
I also
um,
agree. But yeah,
uh,
so like I talked mostly about the Rangers, but even like New is close to going, and Dash with her pistol as well going.
Yeah.
So
Pistol's
Mech is in
pretty
a
good.
weird spot, and Assassin is in a weird spot too. And it's like I know New, for instance, is actually doing quite well in a lot of these tournaments. And more importantly, I think New is like pushing a lot of decks out, right?
yeah.
Hmm.
Like a deck that I feel has the makings of being one of the top decks is Victor. The new Fabled is insane in Victor.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Even in Prism, Andrew Cook did that turn one play.
That's true.
Look at
The
that.
the
Yeah.
new Fabled is very good.
Yeah, yeah.
But Victor in general has had pretty good results. And I know New is like one of those like you just lose matchups.
Hmm.
So the moment New goes, like I think Guardians in general get like way better because
Hmm.
currently Guardians are kind of struggling. So we literally have a Guardian Mastery pack,
Hmm.
and we also have uh like one of the worst, like one of the biggest Guardian counters like going soon. So
Yeah.
that could shake
Mhm.
up the meta quite a lot.
And
Yeah.
I know we're going to talk about this later, but Shuffle, Crack, and Play is a new format that's coming out. I'm excited to talk about that later. Also, we'll do another spoiler set review. It won't be nearly as long as the last 3.5 hour video we did. It's a shorter set, but we'll definitely
No
have
more
to.
whiskey. No more whiskey.
And to the viewers out there, in Evan's case, I do have a habit of drinking a half a bottle of whiskey at a time when I'm on the podcast, so I stopped drinking whiskey so I can actually remember what I'm saying the next day. So, and
On every podcast, bro, it was two. Don't make it sound like you have like
no, no,
a
no, no, no.
terrible
It,
problem.
it was, it
It
was,
was
a,
specifically for the pirate themed
Yeah.
ones.
Well, I
Yeah.
enjoyed it so much
Yeah.
for the pirate thing when I was like, let's continue this on for the next podcast. So
Yeah.
two sequential weekends almost becomes a habit. So I stopped at number 3. I was like, you know what? Let's go ahead, and I got this shiny new toy called whiskey. I'm currently out, so let me not re-up it. Let me stick with beer or like my
Mhm.
Diet Coke. So no, it's not going to become an issue because it won't be another issue. But while we're talking about this,
We're
I
proud of you,
did
Will.
I did have to give a shout out to Sinclair and Noah for coming on the podcast last week. I should have mentioned it earlier.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for carrying my dead weight last week. You know, it was fun times. So all right, going forward, like we're talking about misconceptions and myths next, and I got 2 of them on one cover. Did you guys want to talk about anything else before we go into this about your overall nationals experience? We got a few more kind of points to tie it up, but before we go to the myth section.
Yeah, I guess I never really mentioned how I did in the
Oh yeah.
calling.
Oh yeah, please, Evan. I'm
Um,
sorry.
so nationals, unfortunately, I flunked out. I did quite well in the calling, though. It's one of those things, once again, where if you don't do well in the calling, you kind of shrug.
Hmm.
But when you get so close, it stings all the worst because once again I was poised to top 8, and
Wow.
once again I messed it up completely at the very last second.
How did that happen?
So my final draft, I come out of the draft, I'm shaking. I look at my deck, I say, this is one of the strongest decks I've ever seen. And I need to win 2 out of the 3 of my games in order to top 8.
Hmm.
The first round is against local superstar Andrew Lorenz. We're both sort of in the
Oh my
same
gosh.
situation.
Both equally like it's unstoppable force, unmovable object. Who wins? Tell me
So
more,
I
Evan.
I managed to beat him,
Okay.
which was unfortunate.
Unfortunate in what way?
Well, you'll see.
Okay, okay.
So I say, okay, so I need the final 2 games, I need to win one of the 2, all right? And I've got this deck that I'm super confident in.
What were you
Like
playing, by the way?
there's no I was playing Cannon Marlin.
Okay.
It was very open. Pack 2, I think I get a pick 8 King Shark Harpoon.
Holy
So my
shit,
eyes
dude.
went wide.
Pick 8?
Pick 8, pack 2. And this
That.
may be where I'll say this may be where all my issues lied. Because originally I was actually playing the other bow. Yeah, I was playing the red spine bow. And then I pivoted to the cannon to make use of the King Sharp harpoon. Which
Was one
me
of?
It was a one-of, yeah. But I did manage to get the cards needed for Cannon. But, well, let's just say, so I have 2 games left. I need to win one of the 2 with a deck that I thought was very strong. And I ended up losing both of them. And so Andrew Lorenz ended up winning his next 2 games.
Oh no, your winner's bracket tanked you, dude.
Well, so the big issue is he unfortunately like bubbled out because
Mm.
he lost against me. So he ended up getting 10th place and I ended up getting 15th place. And so because of me, neither of us top 8.
Oh. But you, hindsight's 2020. There's no way you could have like reflected back and said X, Y, and
Oh,
Z.
no,
I'm
no,
gonna do
no.
this. Yeah.
Yeah, it
That's,
was kind of unfortunate, but it is kind of funny in hindsight. On the bright side, since we both top 16, we both came out with $500 in prize money.
wow.
So pretty good.
That's awesome.
So unfortunate I didn't top 8, but there's always next time.
Mm, yeah. And is Nationals always held at Las Vegas? Because I know this was the second
Um
year, right?
They said they alternate.
Mm,
This might be fake news, but I think it's every other year.
okay. Huh. Yeah, I would love to go. So, all right. So we already covered one of the myths, and that is you need a lot of experience to go to nationals. And you're like, heck
Mhm.
no, false.
No.
Yeah, there's
nah.
so many side events, other things you could do. Right? Yeah, if you're in nationals, you're pretty much going to be a contender. But if you can still go to nationals, have a great time playing the side events, like Trevor, or if you scrub out like Evan. No offense, Evan, you could go ahead and hit the side events or the other
It's
tournaments.
true though.
Yeah, I also scrubbed out. So
Oh, the original name for our podcast was supposed to be the Scrubcast, but someone already took that name. Anyways,
no.
fun story, right? All right, so this one's a
Carry the name in spirit.
I hope not. And it was supposed to be let's clean up your gameplay. Anyways, going on to the next thing. So I was on Reddit, and I follow the Flesh and Blood subreddit. And so I saw a post by a Redditor that said SCG, they're the ones that run in this event. And I saw on Reddit that someone's complaining that people weren't allowed to cash in their prize tickets for $1 to high seas, but they were allowed to cash in their prize tickets for packs of high seas, but it allowed SCG to rip open the box and take the gold pack out. Now, you guys being at the scene, is this what you also experienced? Because SCG Con runs a pretty good ship, right? No pun intended. But so this didn't strike to me as something that they would do, but it's also hard for me to verify it.
Yeah, I didn't do any of the set events because I was in the calling and Nats. So I don't know about that one. Have you heard anything,
Yeah,
Trevor?
I heard about it a little bit. I think it was like on. Well, they were definitely doing. You could only grab 6 packs of high seas just because like distribution. So you had to give them your gem ID, and then once you hit your limit, you couldn't grab anymore.
Mm.
So I don't know how you would get the gold pack. I guess.
I
So I don't know
mean,
what they were doing with it.
well, even pooling your resources with 3 other players, 4 other, like, to get up to 24 packs, they would still like, hey, we got 8 people here, all trying to grab 6 packs,
Yeah, I
you
don't
know what I
know.
mean. Okay.
I don't know what
Four
they were doing
people.
with the gold packs. I heard like a little bit of muttering, but then it kind of stopped after the first day. So I don't
Mm,
know if it
Yeah, I'm
got
assuming
resolved.
it's more of the allocation issues more than
Yeah.
them trying to keep people away from the gold packs.
okay.
Though that might have just been an unfortunate consequence of sort of the lack of allocation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think about Con running this event? SCG running this event. They open all these boxes up anyways. They grab the gold packs. What do they do with them? Do they give them out as random, price support, or do they keep them in the store? Because you got hundreds of players, and they dishing out all these packs, and then of course you don't give out the gold pack. What do you do for it? Do you keep it as a random prizing? Like, what do you think?
I
Yeah,
don't
I'm
think
not
they were
sure
handling it.
how SCG handles it, to be honest.
Mm,
Yeah.
Um,
I
yeah,
mean,
for things like I don't know, the calling that we did, they definitely were not giving out like the gold packs to people randomly.
mhm.
I'm assuming they just were holding on to them which, I mean, yeah, that kind of sucks. But
Mm,
at the same time, like, it is technically like their product. They can do
yeah,
what they want with it.
I guess it's true.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not feels bad. It's just business, and it didn't affect your guys' experience there at all. So, all right. Well, that's what I asked you guys for because I hear it on Reddit, but let me verify. Right. I guess we won't have to talk about that anymore. But if any of our listeners know the actual story or they want to spill the tea, drop it in the comments below. I'd appreciate it. Just to check off the curiosity. So, a couple last minute points. Let's say I want to go to nationals next year. Our listeners want to go to nationals next year. What should players prioritize if they're aiming for nationals next year? Like, what are the steps they should take?
I mean, if you want to qualify for nationals, I guess at the moment, like, keep your eyes peeled for any sort of road to nationals events, because that's
Hmm.
the easiest way to qualify.
Yeah.
And just try to attend as many of those as possible, and practice for those events, whether they're draft or classic constructed or some of other third format, like the local RTNs around your area. Just prepare for them like you
Hmm.
would any other like major tournament. Get some practicing on Talishar, do a Runaways draft online. Stuff like that can definitely help you out.
Hmm.
But unfortunately, that of course requires these sort of events to occur. If you're thinking of nationals for now, just keeping up with the game and playing on a sort of somewhat competitive level
Hmm.
can probably be your best bet. You might think of like ELO as being a way to qualify, but they've already mentioned they're getting rid of the current ELO system. So we're unsure like how it will look next year. Plus, like,
Hmm.
ELO is kind of an inconsistent way to go about qualification anyways. Like, yeah, just RTNs are probably the best way to do it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's sorry, Trevor. Go ahead.
No, and I mean RTNs are just like with your locals. Like most of the time, it's gonna be like basically your armory.
Hmm.
So it's pretty chill setting, right? Most of the time, like obviously a little bit more competitive, but you know, it shouldn't be something you're like super unfamiliar with if you're going out to armories and stuff.
It's true. So to kind of finish this, actually, let me make one point too. Whenever I go to a con, I'm always the guy carrying a backpack full of food and water. I don't like playing con prices for food. It's a little bit different with Las Vegas because you got eateries and restaurants all around. But typically you're at a convention center, and the convention center will charge you $20 for a hamburger and some fries. To me, that's highway robbery. I've been in the hospitality business for a long time. I'm a registered dietitian currently. I carry a lot of food and snacks on me, things that kind of stay good for the duration. I say, hey, if you're going to a con, bring a lot more food than you realize, right? Trail mix, water, jerky, anything like that. That's why I would recommend personally. That way, if you're still losing, at least you're not hungry or thirsty and paying $20
Mhm.
for some overpriced, underqualityed kind of con food. My personal take, we're going to have a whole nother episode on this again about how I prep for my convention that's not related to cards. I know we didn't do it because I had the guest podcasters on, so guests, and so we're going to do that in the future time, right? So to kind of wrap it up, what's the one thing you'll do differently next time because of this nationals experience? Let's say you go to another major tournament, you're traveling out. What's the next thing you'll be doing? What's the evolution for Evan? What's the evolution for Trevor?
Well, I'm gonna play Red Spine instead of Cannon Marlin.
Mm.
Because you want to have Death Dealer, even if it is, so she'll be gone, long gone before that happens. CC wise.
But yeah, I think overall, just like be flexible. Like I think I was expecting to day two Nats just because I put in a lot of practice into it,
Mhm.
right?
You're a good player.
Um,
I mean,
yeah, but like, so I was pretty disappointed not to.
hmm,
But like, yeah, looking back, like, it's not really that big of a deal. I had fun in the calling, did quite well in the calling actually, and yeah, it's like these tournaments are designed like there's one winner, one person wins Nats, and like I think around 64 people make money out of like 800 or so people. So there would be a lot of feels bads if not for how many other things there is to do, right? You flunk out of Nats, there's the calling. You flunk out of the calling, there's the battle hardened. You flunk out of that, there's side events, you know? So yeah, definitely keep that in mind. That's something I'm going to keep in mind next year. So in a ways, it's mostly just to stop stressing over it. You know, I was definitely a bit stressed out over Nats. I mean, I think everybody was, given that it was a completely new format on release day. But yeah, end of the day, it is just a game that we enjoy. So yeah, going to these events, we sometimes forget, like, hey, we're here to have fun. And I think that's something I want to look into further, and I want to sort of emphasize more in the future.
And Trevor, how about you? What's the one thing you'll do differently next time because of this Nationals? Let's say another major tournament, another
Yeah, kind of. Honestly, kind of the same point as Evan, because I pretty much only focused on like draft and sealed, and then kind of I don't know. One thing that I don't know. I wouldn't say I regret it, but I did like a lot of draft practice and a lot of like draft prep, and I ended up drafting 0 times because I didn't make the top 8 of the world qualifier in day 2 of the calling, and then I wasn't in that. So I focused a lot on draft, not as much on sealed, when maybe I should have done that. See how maybe that would have changed my odds in the getting into the calling. But I think honestly, just kind of having a backup plan, because I traveled to this big event, and then the one I was really expecting a day 2, the calling. I thought that I had pretty good odds because I had done a lot of the sealed format, but I did basically no CC practice. But had I done just like a little bit more and like prepped a little bit with the new cards for the new meta, I could have done the battle harden as well, and then like done like another like pretty competitive event at this like thing that I traveled 3,000 miles for. Probably would have done that. So I think, I guess, just have a better backup plan, really.
Well, next year you're also gonna make nationals.
Yeah, right. So I'll do that, and then I'll prepare for sealed in the calling if I flub out, and then I'll prepare for CC in the battle harden. Easy money.
Yeah, I know. Me and Ning, we love to play the side events. We always talk about it. We like going for the cards that's on the prize wall.
Yeah.
I think, and I didn't go to nationals, but I know one of the things that me and Ning would talk about would be we need to come up with a commoner deck. We need to come up with or blue sky or whatever it is, blue seas. What new format? What is that? The
Project Blue.
Project Blue. Thank you. So like, or whatever Project Blue might be, Living Legends. Like this stuff we'll have to probably, if we're going to target the side events, because sometimes you can get really good prizing, like a Welcome to Wraith draft, right? Invite randomly given out, or some of the other, gold foils that are given out at these smaller events. And sometimes Commoner or Living Legends isn't the most popular, and there's only maybe 8, maybe 16 people for these side events. So your chances are really good if you have a little bit more practice, or at least intentional practice. So, but yeah, I think we are all in agreement that just go in with a plan, go in with a backup plan, and you should have a good time, right?
Yeah.
And by default, nothing else works out. There's hookers and blow in Vegas. No, I'm just joking, guys.
So there it is.
Yeah.
It's past 12 o'clock. I can make that joke. It's witching hour. All right, guys. So we're going to wrap it up. Any last thoughts?
For me,
Vegas is cool.
Yeah. Well, every turn is a decision. Every decision is a story. And don't forget your damn